You are on mute, my friend.
Okay, there we go. Hey, everybody, welcome
We're
back.
live.
We're live. Fuck it, we're live. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Off the Wall. I'm Mike.
And I'm so.
Or are we? Who knows? Maybe we're Skrulls. You don't know. We could be anyone. We could be you. And you could be us. Or we could all just be Gary Oldman because that's how good of an actor he is. He's not in the show, though, so it doesn't really matter. We are talking about the first episode of Marvel's Secret Invasion, which dropped on Wednesday on Disney+. One that I was looking forward to because I liked what was in the trailers, but I never read the Secret Invasion comics, so I didn't know what to really expect. From what I've heard, this is like completely different. So, because Secret Invasion in the comics had like the X-Men in it, which this does not. So,
right.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I also have not read Secret Invasion, but I really like more of the like spy thriller movies of the MCU, kind of like Winter Soldier, and we were getting those vibes in the trailers, and you definitely get the vibes in this first episode. So that was making me optimistic for this, even though we've had issues with the shows in the past. So that was I was trying to keep it down, but so my level was, and it exceeded where I was at.
Especially because the last show we had was She-Hulk, which we famously did not enjoy. Winter Soldier is still my favorite MCU movie because I like that it's a political spy thriller. And I remember from the first trailers we saw, I was like, this feels big and cinematic and intense. Like the shows have typically been, even like Falcon Winter Soldier, have typically been lighter fare. This one is pretty bleak, and it's pretty much like, I have a feeling of all the shows, this is going to have like the greater the greater applications to the MCU at large, because like Ms. Marvel, until we see the Marvels, is going to have, as far, it doesn't really affect anything. Moon Knight doesn't really have to play on anything
except for
you know, we know that these things are coming, but none of them, you know, WandaVision kind of had some influence on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but not a ton. I shouldn't say a ton. It was kind of the crux of her whole arc in that movie. But this is the first one we're getting where it's like, no, this feels like it's setting up, because we know Secret Wars is coming as the next Avengers movie at the end of Phase 6. So this one feels like it's going to have real implications for what's coming.
This one also feels like this show could be a rated R, rated mature show. And this also feels more along the lines, it feels kind of like a Phase 3 project in Marvel. It doesn't feel as much as what we got in Phase 4, or what we've been getting in Phase 5. This is right up my alley too. It's a spy thriller show, which like I love. Great acting. Olivia Colman, oh my god, I love her.
So good.
So good. We'll get to her. But the show also has stakes as well, where in some of the shows and in some of the movies, you're missing those kind of stakes because obviously you don't want your heroes to die. But this show has stakes. This show has implications. This show is also doing things that other shows tried to do but wasn't as successful. We'll get more into that, but like the Flag Smashers, that kind of like, they're doing it better in this show. And
I really enjoyed Falcon Winter Soldier. I never felt like the Flag Smashers were a real threat.
Or the Compound from like Moon Knight. Already in this first episode, I feel they're doing it better. And this. So we will get into that in our full spoilers, but so far, good on you, Marvel. You're making me happy and helpful again.
This was a hell of a first episode of a show. I mean, it came out the gates. Plus, man, we got almost a full hour. We have almost a full hour. It was like 45, 50 minutes, which is still considerably longer than anything they've put out in over a year. I mean, Winter Soldier had longer episodes, WandaVision had long, but like I remember Moon Knight, they got shorter and shorter and shorter, and then both Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk were 30-minute episodes each. And so for them to let this show breathe, at least in its first episode, and to just take the time they needed, was truly, I mean, it was refreshing. It was refreshing to have something longer, to where it felt evenly paced, like they weren't just trying to just hit story beats, like they were really letting us feel the weight and gravity of everything going on. We got to live in some great character moments, specifically from Nick Fury and Talos. We'll get into that in a sec here as well. But overall, hell of a first episode, setting the bar high for this show, for what I'm assuming will be only one season, because this feels like it's just setting up for the next leg of what's coming in the MCU.
So, you ready to spoil?
Yeah, let me throw up the, it's just, yeah, here, just, there you go. It's up. I'll leave it up for a few seconds. There you go. All right.
Don't yell at us.
Don't yell at us, please. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. I don't know where to start. This was really good. This was really very good. Getting to see Sam Jackson flex hard as Nick Fury, like we have not seen one. Like we are seeing a level of Nick Fury in this first episode unlike anything we've seen in any time he's been in the MCU.
Didn't he feel a little Pulp Fiction to you in that scene?
I hate that movie, so I really can't say. But
like I literally felt when he's with, I forget the name of the guy, but the guy that's a Skrull that is selling the bags to Gaia.
I'm looking. It was hard to miss. I missed a lot of the names. So,
but anyways, the way that like everyone lies, but everyone only gets one lie. They don't get two. And I was just like, this is like him in Pulp Fiction with like the big Kahuna burger, that moment before.
Poprishin.
Who knows?
That's the fake name that he's going under. I don't remember. I don't think they got what his actual Skrull name was, but
yeah, Samuel L. Jackson in this show is the grizzled, I've dealt with too much shit, have you seen the movies? Kind of a guy. And you have three people tell him that he's getting old and he's not up for it and he's changed because of the blip. You had Talos tell him that, you had Maria Hill tell him that, and you had the wonderful Olivia Colman as Sonia tell him that.
Love it.
And so he's a different man. He's a changed man, but he's still that badass Nick Fury. And I love that juxtaposition of his character in this episode. You really have an arc from the first time we met him in Iron Man post-credit scene.
For the first time in his life, Nick Fury doesn't have all the answers, and he doesn't know what to do next. And I think that's part of the reason why he hasn't been the same since the blip, because he's not used to losing. And until the Avengers brought everyone back in Endgame, they lost.
Yeah.
They lost. I remember walking out of Infinity War and thinking, we lost hard. Yeah. And so, like a lot of things have been since Endgame, we've been getting a lot of these stories that deal with the repercussions of the blip. No Way Home, or Not Far From Home, touched on that. Falcon Winter Soldier heavily touched on that. WandaVision, it's been a thing. But I don't think we've ever really approached post-blip on a character, on a human level. It's always been, how did the world recover from the blip, not individual people. And I think Nick Fury, because he was this infallible, always had the answers, was always three steps ahead kind of person, for him, he's the perfect vessel to explore what it's like to have faced the blip, because if anyone's gonna not be used to that, it's a guy like Nick Fury.
He said, I left Earth because I had a crisis of faith and it followed me into space.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing too him having nightmares still of being blipped away.
and
So
and we don't know what happened to him after he came back.
yeah.
So we're probably going to uncover more of that over the next 5 episodes that are in this season, especially because, he gets blipped, and then the next time we see him is at Tony Stark's funeral. So we don't know,
Mhm.
and we haven't really, the next time we saw him after that was in Far From Home, and he was just back doing Shield things. You also got to remember, as far as the world's concerned, Nick Fury's dead.
Yeah.
At the end of Winter Soldier, he's got a headstone. He's dead as far as the world's concerned. So
And in Far From Home, that's Talos playing him because he's
yeah,
up in the space in Saber.
so I'm interested to see if they're going to continue to explore what it's like to not only have had to fake your own death, but then face your own death and then
Mhm.
come back from it to a world where, as far as everyone's concerned, you're still dead. I hope we spend some, not a lot of time, but enough time exploring that. Um, Speaking of people, Talos is. I'm so glad that I love Ben Mendelsohn and everything he's in. I'm so glad he's back as Talos, playing not a villain, because usually Ben Mendelsohn is like your
Yeah.
go-to actor for a villain, and he's damn good at it. Getting to see a lighter side of him, cracking jokes with Fury. The comedy is well executed because it's not taking away from the severity
Yeah.
of the situation. Um, and just seeing this, it's weird to say, a more human approach to Ben Mendelsohn while he's playing an alien.
It only took him to be an alien for him to be human.
Yeah, a shape changing alien that lives forever, basically, to seem really human, because that's usually the kind of characters that he plays.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed he and Sam Jackson have incredible on screen
Yeah.
chemistry, and I from the moment they meet back up and just have that moment of just two men uh getting caught up on lost
Yeah.
time is incredible.
Two great actors having a great scene together. And in that scene too, we learn his wife, Soren, has passed away.
Mhm.
I wonder if we'll see that in a flashback or see why it happened
Probably.
because we and he goes, we have worked for you because you promised us back in Captain Marvel. He promised them a home. We have to remember the Skrulls are refugees.
Yeah,
They
and
don't
it's
have a
been
home.
30 plus over 30 years.
Yeah. And goes, then you got blipped away. Then you disappeared. Carol Danvers disappeared. My daughter has disappeared. Kind of and so he's saying that you guys forgot about us. And I still love you and see you the same, but
Mhm.
the rest of the Skrulls don't
Yeah.
because they feel like they've been on the sideline. And that's when we learn about Gravik, which I'm sure we'll get into. But Gravik being a person who, for a lot of these scrolls, is someone that has solutions and an answer to all of their problems. And we'll get to when we get to that compound of the difference between just the refugees and then the warriors, which they actually split it up into two factions on the compound. And you can see why someone that we saw as good characters in Captain Marvel are
Mhm.
now not good characters, which that was one of the big questions with Secret Invasion is like, you've already shown us the Skrulls are good people.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
how's
why are
that
they
going to
suddenly
work?
bad?
Yeah.
Splinter cells will do that.
Yeah.
Or, radical factions will do that. Again, it's I liked Falcon and Winter Soldier. I never felt threatened by the Flag Smashers.
Yeah.
The Splinter Cell of Skrulls feel very scary.
Yeah.
They are, because they clearly have a plan. The Flag Smashers always seem like they were just doing things,
Yeah.
uh, and following behind one. inexperienced, ill-informed leader.
Yeah,
This
and
is
granted, COVID did mess up their whole
sure.
thing, and they had different story beats that they couldn't do because of COVID, which I would have rather they waited instead of putting it out there,
Yeah,
but
it is what it is.
it is what it
Um,
is.
but that being like we see the Skrulls have Talos lays it out like early on. He's like, look, here's what they're gonna do, and the human race will cease to exist. Flat out. Like
Yeah,
this is what you are facing extinction. You are facing extinction. Nothing more, nothing less.
because you didn't find us a home.
Well, it's like you took these people who have spent their whole lives as outcasts who have nowhere else to go. They have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
But but that also means they have nothing to lose.
Mm.
You know, it takes you back to like Homelander in season 3 of The Boys when he finally tells Starlight, you know, fine, go ahead and release that video of me. 'Cause yeah, I'll lose everything, but then I'll have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So these radicalized Skrulls are like, we've got all this power and we're tired of waiting. It makes me wonder, especially with the Marvels coming out, if we're gonna see Carol Danvers make an appearance because they've name dropped her
Mhm.
a lot. And I get
Yeah.
it because it's directly linked to her movie. I wonder if this will also, in a way, kind of like how the end of Ms. Marvel did, tie into the Marvels, because we see in the trailer for the Marvels, Nick Fury's up in space
Yeah.
doing some stuff, and then powers happen, and Kamala is like, oh my god. So we know we're going to go to space in that movie, and if Nick Fury was up in space building whatever the saber is, I'm curious if that's going to play out towards the end.
No, one thing that I do want to take a detour to is the beginning, that
Mm.
opener that we got with Ross.
Oh yeah, bait and switch.
So with that, first off, we get that you find out it's a conversation happening between Ross and Agent Prescott, but you're first hearing it as Ross is going down, picks up a gun, is the lines of wait, I have it here. We're live.
Who Prescott?
Yeah, Prescott saying what is it here?
While you look that up,
Imagine a world where information can't be trusted. Not very hard, is it?
nope.
News service says one thing, website says another, society starts to fray. Bro. Bro.
That hit a little too close to home.
Bro.
I felt that in my plums. I felt that in my bones. That hurt to hear because we are living that right now. It's such an interesting scene. I pulled up this screenshot from it because I think the screenshot from that scene is really telling. I was thinking about this the whole time I was watching the scene.
100%, 100%.
I wanted to be like, there's no Skrulls in HR.
But yeah, so we've learned right now that there's been five global terrorist attack, and Agent Prescott is going, it's Skrulls. I swear
Yeah.
it's Skrulls. And has proof of another attack. We don't see it yet. We find out what the attack is later on in the show. And he's showing it to Ross, and Ross was like, I'll get to Fury right away.
Yeah.
And that's when he's like, Ross is a Skrull.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
well, I want to point out Prescott is played by Richard Dormer, who was Beric Dondarrion in Game of Thrones, which was that dude has such a good voice.
Yes.
I was mad he died. I was like, oh, I don't get to hear him talk anymore.
Right. But stakes. The show has stakes.
Yeah. No, it's nothing proves that more than the end of the episode, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
And at first, too, you're like, oh, he's a Skrull, but when he's getting choked out, you don't see him change yet.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, wait a second.
He doesn't change till he dies.
He doesn't change until he dies. And that scene of Talos chasing him and them going up the stairs and with the music and then the
Oh,
lights of each
oh,
floor. Oh,
yeah.
so good.
It's so good. This show was shot and edited like a movie.
Yes.
This is the most cinematic series they've
And
done
the music,
since the music is so good. I'm trying to who did I'm trying to find who did the music. It's not here it is. Chris Bowers. Chris Bowers did the score for this show, who has worked on I'm trying to find a list of things he's worked on. He worked on Space Jam: A New Legacy. But he's worked on DMZ, Queen Bridgerton, some Star Trek stuff. So he worked on Dear White People, American Masters, which is he worked on the Norman Lear special for American Masters from PBS. So this is a guy who and he's been nominated and won for dozens of awards for his music composition. This really feels like it could have been a movie, but I'm
yeah.
also really interested to see what it's going to be like as a show. Because if all the episodes are close to an hour long, there's so much they can do with that.
And if they look and sound like this first episode, even just to big up that guy too with the music, with closer to the end of the episode, that horror movie tones
Oh, when
that it
shit
was
goes
happening
south.
when shit goes south.
Oh.
And like, a legitimate, like, my anxiety was going up
Yeah,
because of the music tones and the way people were turning to look. I was like, this is a horror movie.
yeah. The Ali Salim is the one who's directing all the episodes this season, who's done a lot of stuff in TV, Criminal Minds, Hand of God, Looming Tower. Nothing like, I mean, he did an episode of Criminal Minds. He's only done like, a couple episodes here and there, hasn't directed any movies. I'm really curious how they came around to selecting him to direct all these episodes, because it's not that it's like drastically different from anything he's done before, but just the scale of it is so much bigger than anything he's worked on. So I always wonder how they just like when they pick the Russo brothers to do, Winter
Yeah.
Soldier and all that. I'm always curious how they go about selecting some of these directors. It's like, what is it about them that made you go, yeah, those guys. Yeah, this guy. Like, what was the resume? Like, what was the audition like? I'm always really curious about that.
But that's why it also feels like old Marvels, they are picking these directors that haven't done a lot and then just showing their worth.
Yeah. Also, the executive producer for this show is a guy named Kyle Bradstreet, who, among a couple other things, but his big claim to fame was he was a writer and EP for Mr. Robot, which is one of the best shows, I think, in the last 10, 15 years. And if he's bringing some of that Mr. Robot magic to this show, I'm so excited. Yeah. So let's.
You want to do Amelia Clark next?
Yes, please.
You can say.
She's got like one full scene in this and I know she's going to be in there for more. She's in there as a series regular. I love everything that
I said Amelia Clark, not Olivia Colman.
Oh, I'm sorry, that said Olivia Colman. Either one. So Amelia Clark. Well, still Amelia Clark. I mean, Game of Thrones. Cool. Look, forget about season 8. Forget about season 8 of Game of Thrones. Let's forget about it. Forget about that weird Christmas movie she did. Forget about those things. Forget it, and please forget about Terminator Genisys. Forget about that too. Just focus on seasons 1 through 7 of Game of Thrones. We love Amelia Clark. We love Amelia Clark, and she is so good. In it, like I kind of figured she was playing Talos' daughter, who would be about that right age at this point.
Yeah.
And all that. Ooh, she's intense.
Yeah.
Ooh, she good. She is good, and it's also just so weird seeing her wear normal clothes. I was just like, oh, so that's what Daenerys would look like in a t-shirt and jeans. Oh,
okay. and as a brunette.
Yeah, major fan of hers in this show so far. She was. There's just this quiet intensity to her. She's always intense without having to be loud, or seem like she's just, or she never seems like she's trying to be intense.
Yeah.
She just comes across as intense.
I think she got that too from playing Daenerys.
1000%.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
But the way we're introduced to her is this, I believe his name is Beto, coming being introduced to the compound, and he's a scroll that is true. He's like, whatever you did to get here, you're safe now. He goes, we eat scroll food and drink scroll wine, and we wear scroll skins,
Mhm.
except for the warriors. But like,
Yeah.
and then you're going to this compound, you're seeing kids playing soccer, and you're seeing people being happy, and these refugees finally finding a home and a place to live safely, but they're also not allowed to leave. So I feel
Yeah.
they are in an area where
Well, they're at
they,
Chernobyl.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. They don't know what the people that are the powers that be that have created this compound are actually doing. So they're just going on living a happy life. So of course they're going to follow the powers that be, because it's like, oh, we finally have a home now that we can call our own.
Yeah.
Now, but if you are one of those lucky few that decides to be a warrior and join the resistance, first off, you don't wear your scroll skin. You're gonna wear your human skin. So the scrolls don't notice you. AKA, we don't got money to do this every
We
episode.
still we still have a tight budget, so
We need you to look like a human.
yeah.
And
They haven't released it. I'm really curious what the because it
yeah,
seems like they had a budget,
yeah,
but it's like they were very selective with how they were gonna use it.
yeah.
Uh,
And it really too, you see, first off, there's a bunch of humans being held captive. My theory is Ross might be one of them.
gotta be.
Uh,
Gotta be.
and not only are they taking their body, they're also taking their minds as well. And you're seeing just the horrid stuff that the warriors are doing
Mhm.
towards humans. So you could really see how scrolls are both refugees and good people, and people that like are just looking for a better place in life, and then also see scrolls as these terrorists basically. And it's a very interesting way that they're tackling this, and done so much better than the compound that you saw on Moon Knight.
Oh, the cult?
Yeah, the cult.
Yeah. But that's a whole other issue. It's it's a great, because Marvel has always comic books in general have always been really good at uh hearkening to real world issues
Hmm.
through the guise of comic book fantasy. X-Men, very, very obviously an allegory for racism and just, uh, bigotry in general. And you kind of get some of that with what's going on with the Skrulls, where it's like Skrulls themselves are not inherently bad. It's this group of Skrulls that are bombing things and kidnapping people and supplanting them in their own lives. It's especially in the world we live in today, where we talk about where there's all kinds of overgeneralizations against groups of people because of the actions of a few,
Yeah.
that it's more poignant than ever that we it's almost like getting back to the roots of what made comic books great to begin with, which was
Mhm.
um, kind of tricking us into looking inward a
Yeah.
little bit at our own world. Um, so I appreciated that about this, because yeah, like just to be able to just go to this place where you can live, where no one else is going to bother you, and you can live like you're back at home, and just live your and just be at peace. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, 1,000%. Well, that just credit to the extra who played this scroll who comes to the compound, who, like, when he just bites into that weird scroll,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh my, like when
Yeah.
we've all had those moments where, like, you get like that, like something your mom always makes, or just that,
Yeah.
or where you take a bite, you're just like, oh Fuck yes. Like it's the best thing. I was at a show in Cincinnati, which is the motherland for Skyline chili. So of course we went there for dinner, and just getting to have Skyline in Cincinnati, it's like yeah,
Skyline chili is good, yo.
Skyline chili is the shit. So I really appreciated how well he played out that scene, because I was like, yeah, because it's probably been a decade, if not longer, since he's had, whatever that Skrull
Yeah.
planet was.
And to speak on it too, where I said this is better than also the Flag Smashers, is because the Flag Smashers kind of started in the same way. Those kids were refugees, they were
Yeah.
orphans, and so to see them in Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I ultimately reviewed positively, um, there was issues with the last episode, but I ultimately liked that show. Uh, you see, like you said, the Flag Smashers didn't have a plan in place
Yeah.
like these Skrulls do. And the Skrulls are like, we've waited since the 90s. We've waited
Yeah.
patiently. You haven't done shit. We're gonna do it. It's literally the Thanos, I'll do it myself
Mhm.
moment.
Well, I hate doing this, but like to compare it to like what the Flag Smashers were doing. The Flag Smashers were people who were pissed off that everyone was back from the blip, and they felt displaced
Yeah.
in some way. Uh, Legitimately or not, just either way, they felt displaced in some way. But at the time when the Flag Smashers were coming up, like they had been displaced for 6 months. The Skrulls have been displaced for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Also, the Skrulls are following someone who has not only presented a plan, but proved they can deliver on that plan, who has resources, who has experience. The Flag Smashers were following a 19-year-old girl who had no freaking idea what she was doing.
Yeah.
It just wasn't believable. Love the show. I love the show for Bucky and Sam, though, not so much for who they were, and Captain Chinstrap, but not so much who they were fighting. That chin strap was the hardest working thing on that show. I love that dude. He had a mighty jawline, and that helmet chin strap was the lowest, was the hardest working person on that set. I So with the Skrulls are just, it's going to be a really great way to really, like, kind of like what Civil War was trying to do with questioning sides and questioning loyalty.
Yeah.
The Skrull Splinter Cell is going to be this true, like, the idea of an understandable antagonist. It's like, I get where they're coming from. I don't agree with their methods, but I get
Yeah.
where they're coming from.
Right.
And it also, again, it
And it
forces,
makes a good villain too, which
yeah,
sometimes we haven't had an MCU where we don't understand where the villain's coming from.
it's what typically makes the MCU characters stand out as the villains that you enjoy. People had mixed feelings about Thor: Love and Thunder, but I think everyone pretty much agreed that Christian Bale as Gore was pretty excellent. We think about Loki, we think about Vulture, we think about um,
Thanos.
Thanos, or Michael B. Jordan in Black Panther. I am blanking on his name all of a sudden, and I don't know why.
Killmonger.
Killmonger. Thank you. I want to say Warmonger, and I was like, that's not it. We think about those villains where it's like, oh, I don't like what you're doing, but I kind of get it. Like,
Yeah.
those are the ones that are the most compelling, the ones that we remember the most, that we want to see more of, that can really make or break, that can really turn the tide on how you feel about a Marvel property.
Yeah.
So, one of the things people complained about the most with Multiverse of Madness was they didn't like that Wanda was the villain. I actually thought it was fine, but so yeah, I'm really interested to see how this is going to play out, because this
Me
could
too.
play out a lot of different ways.
Now, let's get to our favorite character
Yeah,
who had the shortest screen time
yeah,
but stole the screen.
1000%.
And the jazz music that was playing during that scene was
Flawless.
also
Excellent.
flawless. It felt like a old spy thriller. Let's get to Olivia Colman.
Yeah, that
Sonya.
scene was straight out of an old James Bond movie, and I want
Yes.
more of that. Put Olivia Colman
Yes.
in everything. Put Olivia Colman in everything.
Yes.
That scene was,
Even to the accent that she was using. It
Oh,
wasn't completely her normal British accent. It sounded more like the accent she uses as the queen in,
yeah.
The Crown, and I loved it. I loved it.
I'm always curious to ask this of people. What was the first thing you remember seeing Olivia Colman in?
What's that British show that the name of it, like, where she, because she started out more as a comedic person,
Yeah,
and then she went to stuff like The Crown, where she's able to have that gravitas.
yeah.
But that show, that British show,
Can you be more specific than that?
it's a comedic British show. That's what I saw her first in.
I mean, she was in a whole bunch. So, I mean, I don't know.
I'm
I mean,
forgetting the name
for
of
me,
it.
it was Hot Fuzz because she's in the.
I haven't seen Hot Fuzz.
You need to see Hot Fuzz. She is so freaking funny in Hot Fuzz because she plays this other police officer in the village. Every word out of her mouth is some grotesquely perverted, dirty euphemism for
I
something.
love her so much.
It's she's like
Look at her Oscar speech too.
where
Like,
she's like, I could give you a tour around the office. I've been around the office more than a few times. Or she knocks out this woman who's attacking him, and she's like, nothing like a bit of girl on girl, eh, boys? Like she Olivia Colman is a fucking treasure, and put her in everything, please.
Skins.
I never watched Skins. Okay. Yeah. I love Olivia Colman. So
So good.
so we knew she was going to be in this show, and I was really hoping, because it is Marvel, she was going to get the flex the comedy chops again.
Yeah.
We know she's a stellar dramatic actress. That is not a secret to anyone.
Yeah.
She is so funny, and this scene lets her do a little bit of both. Like when it
Yes.
opens with like, oh, they said there was a large black man walking around Russia. Well, I knew it was one of two people, and I forget the name of the other guy, or Nick Fury. And I was like, that is an objectively funny thing. That is
Yes.
absolutely true. When Talos says you're gonna go walk around Russia, you're gonna
He
stand
knew what
out.
he was doing.
He knew what he was doing. It's absolutely true. Olivia Colman's scene is so, like I said, it's a classic James Bond scene.
Yes.
I'm going back and rewatching some old Bond movies lately, and it's like that is like cut copy paste standard issue spy thriller scene right there,
Yes.
and I loved
Yes.
it.
So good. And like we said, we feel like you're watching, like, not even just a spy thriller of now. Like,
Yeah,
you're watching like a spy thriller from the 70s. Like, it's very, and it doesn't feel out of place, but it's that moment in the spy thriller where, for whatever fucking reason, now the British are involved, which you have in like every spy thriller movie, even like
there's
an American one. There's always the British somehow find a
one of
way
the
to get in.
worst James Bond movies ever was Die Another Day, and one of the people that James Bond is fighting says, "You British always think you can police the world," and it's like, yeah, they kind of do. I mean, we're no better. We're no better at all. But it does always seem like the Americans and the British are sticking our noses where they really shouldn't fucking be.
Yeah.
Although in
And the
this
British
case,
know that the Skrulls are there too, which, for our knowledge, only like Fury and a few need to know people knew that the Skrulls were on the earth. And MI6 is like, we
yeah,
know.
yeah, of course we know. It's interesting to me that they shot this in 2021, towards the end of 2021. And it's interesting to me that the premise of the show is they're faking the Skrulls are posing as an American organization called Americans Against Russia. When you look at the state of the world right now, kind of surprised that's not already a thing. But also, given the state of the
Also,
world,
Americans not great at naming things, so it's like,
no, we're
yeah,
not. We're terrible at
that
it.
would be the name. That would be the terrible name.
1,000%. It's again kind of like with the false information thing that Prescott was saying at the beginning, when they're like, yeah, they're stirring up drama between America and Russia as a cover. I'm like, yeah, that tracks. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that would work. It's not hard to do. It's not difficult to stir up that drama.
And somehow the British find their way involved. Yep, that
Course
that
they do.
sounds correct too.
Whatever we have to do to get Olivia Colman in there, I'm really curious who she was talking to when we were seeing the kind of camera footage of her, because that guy looked similar to the dude that plays Vincent Van Gogh in Doctor Who, and I'm wondering if it was the same guy, because Olivia Colman was also on an episode of Doctor Who in that same season. So
I don't watch Doctor
you don't
Who, so
watch
I don't
Doctor
know
Who?
who you're talking
Why?
to.
Why am I talking to you then? I don't know. I'm really curious, and but I really hope we see a lot more of her. Like, I'm sure she's not a one and done, but I really hope she gets a lot more room to flex in this season, because more Olivia Colman is never a bad thing. That's like trying to ruin ice cream with chocolate sprinkles. It's impossible.
So let's get to the big sacrifice that we have in the
I don't
show.
wanna. No, I'm gonna get mad. I'm
And
gonna get angry.
Maria Hill, we'll first talk about her as a character
Uh-huh.
in this episode, but we'll get to what happens
Uh-huh.
at the end.
Uh-huh.
Mike, would you like to start?
No, you go first. I watched this 2 days ago. I'm still angry.
So first off, this is the most Maria Hill from the comics that Maria Hill has felt like in the
Oh,
MCU.
1,000%. Yeah.
And I'm so upset that we finally get the actual Maria Hill we wanted.
And then they fucking kill her. And then they fucking kill her. And everyone's like, oh, it's the MCU. She might come back. She gets listed as special guest star in the closing credits.
She's
She
gone.
ain't coming back. And I am livid.
Well, first off, half of me loves it because I'm like, yes, the show has stakes. And this is what happens.
From a writing standpoint,
Oh,
it is
chef's
excellent.
kiss.
Because, yes, that lets us know
They ain't fucking around.
people can die. But
Maria.
why? Because I was so excited going into this show, because I was like, we're going to see Nick Fury and Maria Hill just doing
Being Nick Fury and Maria Hill.
Yeah, doing all the shit that they're usually doing behind the scenes when they're cameoing in Spider-Man movies. We're going to get to actually see them do shit.
Yeah.
And we did for one episode. And then literally the last shot that we hold on for so long, it felt like they were trying to make a point.
That
Maria
she did.
She did.
And I want to go to earlier in the episode, the bar scene.
Love that scene.
That we had with Nick Fury, Maria Hill, them playing chess. Always thought you were 3 steps ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, you always told me if you couldn't see the next step, to quit.
Yeah.
So what are you still doing here? Like, check your steps. Kind of like she was giving him the check yourself before you wreck yourself. And also, I love right before that, the conversation he had with the Russian dude was like, how do you think we kept the Cold War cold? Like,
yeah.
And so you're seeing all of these like really brilliant people that you know why they run the shit behind the scenes in all the MCU, and you're seeing it in the forefront in this type of spy thriller show, and you're just loving it, and you're like, I want more of this, I want more of this, I want more of this. And then Gravik as Nick Fury fucking kills her, and to her, in her brain, her last thought was Nick Fury killed me.
I feel like Maria is also smart enough to know that, like, oh, I just got killed by a Skrull. Because all she says is the word "you," which I took to mean she's like she was thinking like it looked like you, and because it's just Maria Hill's smarter than that. Because I mean, they're specifically there taking out people who can shape change, and she earlier in the episode saw somebody pretending to be Ross and was on her way to go help Ross. So
if she was shot and survived, she's 100% smart enough that like while she's bleeding out, like in like the hospital going, yeah, that was a Skrull. But when your first thought is probably that's my friend who just killed me, and she didn't live long enough to process that was a Skrull.
Well, we're never gonna know because she's fucking dead and we're not gonna see her anymore. I'm so mad. I respect the choice. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. But also, it's one of the. I also like. I understand people like to say the Marvel movies don't have stakes because a lot of times they kind of don't. But I just
I
can't
mean,
help.
Nick Fury came back from the dead.
I can't help but feel like there were other ways we could have handled this. Give her a few more episodes, maybe. Why did it have to be the first? Here's how
To show
infuriating.
them they ain't fucking around, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
Here's how infuriating this decision was. It made the real rejects react negatively. The real rejects with Koi Jandrew are the most positive, grass is greener on the other side reactors on the internet. All three of them looked like they were ready to put their fists through the TV they were watching the show on. Koi looked like he was ready to burn the house down. Like I was almost kind of like, oh, they do get angry about things. Okay, cool. That's so woo. I'm right there with them. I'm not happy. I respect the choice, but I don't like it.
All right. I do got a question here.
I might have an answer.
All right.
Blue.
Agent Ross
Mm-hmm.
was a Skrull. How long has he been a Skrull for?
Well, actually, and now that I'm thinking about it, we don't know what happened to him after the end of Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Yeah. I'm assuming
So,
he was still human then.
but what I'm wondering is the Ross that we saw in this episode, was that the one that got broken out of the van at the end of Wakanda Forever? Or does Wakanda have a Ross and they just happen to have this Ross? You know what I'm saying?
I think Ross got copied after that. And the only reason I think is because of Val. Val
Okay,
was married to him, and I think Val would have realized that he was a Skrull. Just
sure.
because like in the comics, like where you they there was tells that people were Skrulls, like by the way they like their mannerisms, things of that nature. And because she was actually married to him,
Right.
I feel like she would have been able to tell if he wasn't actually him. So I feel like he was still a human
Mm-hmm.
up until that point. I think that he's safe in Wakanda, but somehow in that kind of transport, a Skrull saw him and switched,
Something.
or somehow in that transport they stole him and he's now in the compound, like
Yeah.
with all the other humans that are like in a coma, and they copied
Yeah.
them.
I'm really curious how that's going to play. I mean, we've got 5 more episodes to go, so I'm sure we'll get the answer to that at some point. That is something that was kind of in the back of my head throughout the whole thing. I was like, okay, we saw him get rescued at the end of Wakanda Forever. I would assume he's just in Wakanda. So what the hell's
Let us
going
know
on?
your theories down
Yeah,
below.
please. Unless I'm forgetting something from Wakanda Forever. Also, with the Val thing, we don't know if Val knows the Skrulls exist. You know what I mean?
I feel like she's high
I
enough up
I
to
feel like
know.
she would,
Yeah.
but I I don't know because she's sketchy enough of a Shield director as it is, or whatever her CIA director as it is. That's the thing. Remember,
Mhm.
she's CIA. She's not Shield.
Yeah.
So the Skrulls seem like more of a shield and sword thing. So I'm curious how that's because she's not.
I'm sure even if the CIA doesn't know,
Yeah,
Val knows. Val knows shit.
she does.
She
Um,
knows shit she's not supposed to.
but so far, Julia Louis Dreyfus is not listed anywhere in the cast as a special guest star or as a series regular. Now she could make a cameo eventually.
Yeah.
Obviously, that goes without saying. But as far as we know now,
Oh no. Well, Mike froze on a beautiful face right there. I'm gonna give my final thoughts until maybe Mike comes back. This show hit on all cylinders for me. The plot is intriguing. You just like I said before, you have these Skrulls that are refugees and they have no home, and they're now following a guy who's promising them things and living up to that promise. So of course they're going to follow. And so that makes sense in this story. And then you have the radical guy like Gravik who takes power and building that compound, giving them a sense of safety. Um, you have the fact that the scrolls. I'm now talking by myself, guys. Mm, you could tell we're live, huh? But yeah, the fact that the scrolls they're separated into resistant warriors and refugees that aren't allowed to leave the compound, and this is going to be interesting. I want to see what's going to happen here with the scrolls. Who else might be a scroll out there of the characters that we know? That more so in the comics, you had these heroes that we loved, and finding out that they were scrolls all along. So, are we going to get people more than just an Everett Ross as a scroll? Also, to a thing that we didn't mention, we have Rhodey in the episode, and he's speaking to the president. He's working for the president, and he says that Fury and Hill are AWOL. So, with them being AWOL, they're not going to have the support of the U.S. government. So, how's that going to play a role in the future episodes? On top of that, you got father and daughter story on different sides of basically what you can call a war. You have death of characters. You just saw how Mike was so upset he left. He left because he was so upset with Maria Hill's death. And Olivia Colman is the best. They agree outside driving. This is wonderful. This is such a great thing here live, and thank you guys who are here watching. Thank you guys who will come later and watch this craziness that happens now here on this live episode of the first episode of Secret Invasion. Let us know who's the scroll. Let us know down below. Let us know your theories on when Ross became a scroll. And let us know any thoughts that you had on the episode yourself. I'm Sol. That was Mike who was here, but not anymore. And we'll see you next time on Off the Wall.